Here we go.
Welcome. Look forward to another chat.
Yeah. So this past week, we were invited by the Between the White Lines Summit, run by Mark Jeffries and Emma Collins, to do a presentation. We were asked alongside, I think, over 45 other presenters, coaches, educators, people trying to help tennis. And Between the White Lines Summit, they're trying to grow the game postcode by postcode. And what we did is we made some notes, and we took the time to read those notes. It took about 6 minutes, I believe, approximately, and covered some problems and solutions. The title of our presentation was Fact-Based Instruction for Long-Term Development. And so we read those notes and we covered some of the points, and we told our listeners that we would review those at another time on a podcast. And so here we are. And so the plan is tonight where we're going to review those notes and make some additional comments.
Mark Jeffries?
Yeah, Mark Jeffries, Emma Collins.
Certainly we're very happy to be part of it. I hope they're very successful with their first go around. I understand they want to do it on a continued basis.
Yeah. And
their motive is to, as you said, grow the game.
Yeah.
The idea that, of course, we can really speak, even though I know you've traveled so many countries, I've been in over 30 countries, but we can really just speak on behalf of what's going on in the U.S. But the presenters were worldwide, and the consensus is that we need to help tennis.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to go through those notes again and expound on them, add some additional comments, and hopefully give you a lot of value.
Yeah, let's go through the notes. I know you read these through, but we'll just, instead of reading them, we'll just talk point by point. And again, this comes from our position in the tennis world. It just pertains to the tennis teaching field.
Yeah.
Tennis people basically work for three things: money, recognition, and satisfaction. Unfortunately, for the most part, satisfaction is a distant third in most cases. We need, as tennis people, to find ways to become a team, united, to work together. We need to make tennis less of a business. And first and foremost, we need to go back, make tennis a sport. We emphasize that teaching, in the tennis teaching field, people are usually asked to do three things: teach, organize, and sell. And it's our observation, our opinion, there's too much selling. There are too many third base coaches. That's an American term, American baseball. First base, second base, third base, home plate. There's so many people that want to teach someone who's already about to score.
Yeah.
That's what we mean by a merchant of flesh. For those people that listened to us speak during the summit, we actually mentioned that we would do this during the podcast because we had to go so fast. We just had 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Merchant of flesh, looking to buy players opposed to producing players. If everybody, it's in our notes, is just would love to teach beginners to start new players. There's too much emphasis on recruitment, not enough emphasis on development. In the tennis teaching industry, too much attention goes to high-end players. Say, for example, junior tennis players at a park, at a club, a school. We need to understand the connection between all levels. I think one thing in tennis teaching, there's too much edifying, too much, you're great, I'm great, we're all great. You tell people great, I'll tell them the same thing. And really, in the end, we're pretending that we're all doing a great job, and we need to do a better job.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one thought with that, I think of Vic Braden's line where he said, great as Vic was, he said, tennis is in the Stone Ages. And then we believe, although so many things have improved education-wise as well, and I would consider us lifelong learners, but I think we still are in the Stone Ages in a lot of different areas.
No, we had a podcast on Jim Furtick, one of the pillars of our GreatBase curriculum. We need to do the same thing for Vic. May 10th, 1976, Sports Illustrated. That was the title of the article, featured article.
Mm-hmm.
Vic Braden, and at that time his partner, Gideon Ariel. Tennis is in the Stone Ages. And really, it still is. It still is. It hasn't really progressed. The technology via racket, for example, that has changed so much.
Yeah.
And certainly there's been some improvements with tennis teaching, but there's some things that are far worse.
Yeah. No, all sorts of problems. And to begin with, tennis is a very difficult sport. It's not an easy sport to pick up. You can't pick it up overnight. Tennis has become way too expensive to learn how to play. Like you've said this, most tennis pros that teach couldn't afford their own lessons. And for goal-oriented players that are trying to make money as well, it's become way too expensive to play, to have to travel and try to get points.
Yes. Socioeconomic functioning levels for someone to take a private lesson. It's almost like if you take so many of them, you have to have a money tree in the backyard. A couple of things on the difficulty of the sport. Braden, if set up a ball machine, the balls are coming out at 30 miles an hour. You change the racket by 1 degree, the ball goes 6 feet further.
Yeah.
Vic used to get a lot of laughs by telling people in adult tennis, and it's so tough for entry-level adults to get going in tennis, is they buy the clothes and they wear them to the grocery store. When you freak people first start playing tennis, I mean, they're on court number 3, and there's, say, 8 courts, and they say, excuse me, can I have my ball back?
Yeah.
So it's a very, very difficult sport.
I remember I was with a group of friends and, oh, you play tennis? And, yeah, some guys that I had just met and I'll play tennis sometime. I'm like, okay, great. And so they went out and bought like a cheap racket and, so we went and tried to play tennis, and about 10 minutes in, it was like, all right, let's go play basketball. I was like, that's not going to work. Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
Well, the one thing about a basketball hoop, we tell people all the time, if you climb up on a ladder, 2 basketballs will go through the hoop at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's an optical illusion. The rim looks like it's the same size as the ball.
Yeah.
So when a kid goes out in the driveway, little boy, little girl, they're shooting hoops. They know they did something right if it goes in the hoop.
Yeah.
When someone is hitting against the garage door or hitting against the backboard, they have no idea.
Yeah.
So the target doesn't give them that instant nonverbal feedback.
Yeah, it's deceiving. And I know we'll get into later the dimensions of the court, physical laws, those kind of things. But so some solutions, we talked about. Number one, education. Tennis is more of a service-oriented business than an education-based business. So education, so important. Growth, we need to work like gardeners, growing flowers and not weeds. And participation, teaching is for everybody, not just so-called experts. And, related that to the Bible, to a biblical teaching that, hey, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him how to fish.
Yeah, education. The tennis business being service-oriented, the people that are on that side of it, and we all are to a certain extent, you have to actually combine both service-oriented and education-based. Mm-hmm. But say a typical junior program, the coaches are rolling out the baskets of balls, they're under the hot sun, they're feeding balls, they're trying to control, motivate, regulate children going through lines. It's service-oriented. I mean, stop. Is it an education?
Yeah.
The late John Wooden. Don't mistake activity for learning. Mm-hmm. I think with growth, you got to get down on your hands and knees to work in the garden. You got to work in the garden every day, and all of a sudden you've got, the vegetables you're growing or the flowers. It's not a matter of just technique. It's a matter of growing character. Mm-hmm. But it's really, you have to be able to educate. And then as far as participation, we have that as towards the end of the notes here is how to get more people involved.
Yeah. We've got on our website, we have a blog post that you wrote that's really has gone pretty kind of viral in some ways. It's been translated, I know, into lots of different languages, but it's called "Why Do Players Change Coaches So Often?" So you could refer that to that, listeners out there, but that covers consumer knowledge, the buyer, product knowledge, the seller, and student knowledge, the taker.
The short answer, why do players change coaches so often? That's what the pros do. The Ferrari, the Bulgarian, Dimitrov.
Yeah.
7 coaches his first 7 years on the Pro Tour.
Well, with Osaka as well. She's had quite a few.
Yeah. Well, that's where it's kind of backwards, where in pro tennis, I worked with Carleen Bassett. Carleen Bassett and her husband, Robbie Scuzzo, had a tennis academy. I was their first director. And Carlene, who was dropped off at the Nick Balterian's Tennis Academy when she was 8 years old by her father, John. So when it comes down to how does it work? So what Carlene would say about Nick, he's a fantastic junior coach, but a pro coach, not so much, because the pro is the boss. You know, if you're the coach of a pro player and say, hey, you need to go run, you need to go do some hills. The person writing the check is the player. So it's really backwards.
Yeah.
So the short answer is the pros do it, but the long answer, there's two sides to it. That the consumer, they observe lessons and they say, gee, we're bringing our child here for a year. And sometimes the consumer, they bop and shop too soon.
Yeah.
But does the consumer really have consumer knowledge? Are they just blindly writing checks for tennis lessons, or do they really know what they're paying for? Do they have the ability to evaluate competency? Like this person, do they just judge a lesson based on personality? Oh, that was fun. Oh, I really like the coach. So consumer knowledge is a major factor, but then product knowledge is quite interesting too. It's like people that are selling at these sporting goods stores where they are selling all sorts of products, all different sports.
Right.
And people say, well, yeah, they're making it on 98% people skills, 2% product knowledge.
Yeah.
In tennis, if there is a product, you have to produce it. And actually, even people that are not really knowledgeable from a technical standpoint, they can tell if someone's hitting the ball well because efficient strokes are aesthetically appealing. So, but with product knowledge, most tennis trainers, tennis teachers, tennis coaches, whatever the title may be, they're really lacking in product knowledge, but they know what they're selling. So really the tennis lesson becomes a street hustle.
Yeah.
So this is for junior tennis. The buyer is the parent, the seller is the coach, and then the taker is the junior. And if you were to compare it to, say, basketball, the junior's going, let's scrimmage, coach.
Yeah.
What group am I in, coach?
Yeah.
I don't like this drill, coach.
Yeah. Hoosiers, let's just shoot.
And the only business is a repeat business. Let them, okay, we're going to make it fun because we want them to come back.
Yeah.
And it's actually done many times where kids are happy Monday through Friday, and they go to the tournament on Saturday. They're not too happy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it goes back to, making tennis a sport again. It's fine to be an activity, to get some exercise, have some enjoyment, but there needs to be a distinguishing line, I think. It's like, okay, do you really want to be an athlete in this? You want to have it be a sport, or do you want it just to be your little once a week activity? Yeah,
I think most of the time in tennis teaching, what happens is it's not teaching, it's unteaching.
Yeah.
Someone's played, 3 or 4 years with poor instruction, and then they say, I'd like to really learn to play this game. With marketing, sell. I think there's too much ego. That's a problem. There's too much greed. Mm-hmm. I think there's too much plagiarism.
Yep.
We're not giving credit where credit's due. Along the same lines, not referencing work or being a ghost follower. But, what are your resources? And we'll get into that in more depth. The consumer, the parent, the buyer, they need a BS detector. That's where one of the things to grow the game is we need to bring honesty to the forefront. Bring honesty to the forefront of tennis instruction. Fact versus fiction. Dave Anderson, who we interviewed in our last podcast, we're talking about tennis parents. Facts have no feelings. Mm-hmm. I mean, if your forehand's crummy, it's crummy. Mm-hmm. We tell people this all the time. When crummy plays crummier, who wins?
Yeah.
Crummy wins, but they don't know they're crummy.
Right.
Say a golfer, they're compared in many ways, their game against the golf course. A swimmer, their game or they're swimming against the clock.
Yeah.
A tennis kid is compared against the person on the other side of the net.
Exactly.
So as we went through this, we used a quote. Andy read through it, and we came back to a quote because it does sound a little doom and gloom, like, oh, it's so negative, but it's not. Teddy Roosevelt, I'm not giving you hell. I'm just telling you the truth. And it sounds like hell.
Yeah.
Now that applies to a kid's game. Your tennis game's a wreck. Your serve, the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming right at you.
Yeah.
But the same with the tennis industry. They're one and the same. If kid after kid And people leave the sport. They leave the sport. And, I think we try to get them into tournaments. I tell people, and it sounds shocking, but a lot of times club coaches are telling parents, have your kid take lessons Monday through Friday, come to the program, play on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And I tell the parents sometimes that's because the pro, they're taking the weekends off. Another point was a coach should have a coaching tree. It's so easy to get in the tennis profession. Mm-hmm. You think of someone who's coaching in high school, coaching in college, they have to have a higher degree. They have to pay their dues to be in that position. But really, any Tom, Dick, and Harry, if you got a ball hopper, an ego, a heartbeat, you're good to go.
You can make some money.
And in this country, it's too easy to be a certified pro. I mean, I'm a member of the USPTA, PTR. I'm going to bet that over 40 years in both, if not just under. So combined 80 years. And I've been as a tester in both organizations. Right now, less than 50% of people are certified in this country. And certification doesn't mean education.
Right.
So, and it's not to beat up on the young people today, but just through your fingertips. Okay, I've done some YouTube clips, and it is true. You can learn to do almost anything on the internet. I've been told that. Not that I do anything outside of tennis teaching, but I think people are pretty hard pressed to learn how to hit a tennis ball by going through the internet because there's so much bad information.
Yeah. So much bad information goes out so fast.
I think in tennis, we tend to promote ourselves. We need to promote tennis.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I ran my tennis school for a long time, 15 years or more. It's called Tennis Smith. So my name was in the name. And, we understand where people need to be, like say the Andy Fitzell School of Tennis, because of equity. You leave the facility and it's your program. It's your name on the program.
Right.
But regardless, you need to put tennis first. And I do think that there's too many people that are overnight expert. Anderson mentioned last week, 10 years to really know your craft. It takes 10 years to be a tennis player. Arthur Ashe said, 3 years to be a fair player, 5 years to be a good player, then 10 years to be a great player.
Yeah. I've heard you say this before where you say, do what's best for the kid first. If we're talking about junior tennis, and it could be a pro player too, any player, but it's do what's best for the player first. And you could say for tennis first.
No, for sure. If you have to reprimand a kid, obviously you want to reward a kid too, but it comes down to if it's good for the kid, it's good for the game, and you do it.
Yeah.
There's a major problem with pretending that we're developing local players. And that'll carry into some of the things we talk about with college tennis. Pretending to have taken players through all stages. And again, love to teach the beginner.
Yeah.
It's a matter of bringing new people into the game. You could name some cities, say, okay, let's go with the letter S. Seattle, Shreveport, Syracuse. And it's a pretty safe bet in those three cities. The merchants of flesh are trying to recruit the kids that are already on third base, the kids who can play a little bit, instead of saying, hey, we got to teach new kids. And there's, recruiting. Hey, come to my program. And the parents fall victim to that too, because they want to have their kid go hit with Johnny. And
sure.
I think that's the age-old secret with the academy is we're going to give these kids scholarships.
Yeah, marketing.
They're going to work as magnets, and they're going to bring other people into it.
Yep.
Credibility. This is very important. Credibility means you're believable. Mm-hmm. Credibility doesn't mean you're truthful.
Yeah.
It is a bonus if you're a really good player. Like our celebrity coaches are, they bring a lot to the table, but they're mentors, they're confidants. It's not like, for example, they're technicians. But the parents need to understand that.
Yeah, rarely.
Credibility means you're believable. Credibility doesn't mean you're truthful.
Yeah. I've always heard you say that, and it's one of my favorite lines. And it's so true. Well, along those lines, we've scheduled a hypothetical meeting with the following people. We've got about a dozen people, and these people have literally lived the GreatBase Tennis curriculum. And the topic of this conversation would be growing the sport.
Yeah, one thing with that, that's what Mark Jeffries and his team wanted to get accomplished, and I'm sure they'll continue.
Yeah.
And I wish them the best, is growing the game. Now, we could have picked a number of different people. Now, I've been in this thing a long time, 46 years.
You always remind us how old you are.
Yes. And what did you say about old people? One more time?
One more time?
Yeah.
Although slow and dangerous behind the wheel, can still serve a purpose.
I've been at
That's from a movie, though. It's not me, folks. It's just a movie quote.
And the movie's Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
And I hadn't seen the movie until recently. Because there's two now, right? Was there a sequel?
Yeah, there was a sequel.
So I've only seen the first one. But I used to tell people, as far as consumer knowledge, is that was a dumb lesson. But the parent wrote the check, so it's dumb and dumber.
Yeah, exactly.
But I've been in many meetings where, okay, group of people, you have 8 people, 10 people, whatever. And, one person, they want to sell hotel rooms. And one person, they're at the table and they want to sell memberships. Mm-hmm. It's almost like everybody has a different agenda, which I understand.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to, people need to understand tennis, just like they understand the alphabet.
Yeah.
This is A, this is how it looks, this is the shape, this is the sound.
Yeah.
And can we agree and go on to B?
Yeah.
But I think that's where we really are not together in tennis teaching.
Yeah. Okay, so number 1, we've got Federation CEO Craig Tyley.
Yeah, Tyley.
Spent 7 years under your tutelage.
Yeah, he was at Tyler Junior College, 7 years, and so many great things about Tyley, his charisma, hardworking, but he lived the GreatBase curriculum. 1981 was the first accredited curriculum of its type. I had the opportunity at age 26 to revise his curriculum. So he was trained. Say, for example, Craig never met a Welby Van Horn, but he was trained through that system. Go ahead. We'll go through. I see this where I'll let you go back to this list, but like Dave Fish is on this. And I was looking in our library over the weekend, and this is a great story. His partner at that time was Gordon Graham. Gordon was in charge of the women's team, and Dave was in charge of the men's team. They had a very successful camp. Dave's wife, Bonnie, ran the camp. And for 12 years, they used our curriculum. Now, Cheyenne Hawk from Bangladesh had 2 degrees from Tufts, squash player. So he was sent to spend, or they wanted me to come up for a weekend and train the coaches. And I said, well, I could do that, but that's kind of like sugar on sugar cereal. I mean, I've done it for years. I'm going to go someplace and I'm going to train people for 3 days. I said, why don't you send your camp director to Tampa, where I was based at the time? So Cheyenne came down and he called up and said, 3 days isn't going to do it. And he stayed closer to 3 weeks. I mean, he had to go home, rearrange his schedule, and come back. But we have it's a Harvard curriculum, the tennis camp curriculum.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And, it's the Welby Van Horn. It's a 3/8 system of balance, of body balance positions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he had an off-the-chart personality for being a teacher, Cheyenne. But he was just trained so fast. And, that needs to happen. But yeah, let's go through a hypothetical meeting. If we have people that are, go ahead, go through the list, a national coach.
Yeah, so I've got Craig, Federation national coach Matt Clore, spent 14 years on various projects.
Yeah, no, I've known Matt since he recruited my son, Connor. Now, he's an excellent tennis player. But my son said, and I had never met Matt, but I knew his name because he's born in 1984. Riley DeHart, who I coached forever, was born in 1984. I just knew the name Matt Clore. So then I got to know Matt through the recruiting process with so many stories. So he's in Tampa with his players, and his players, they have a fall tournament. All 4 of them lose on a Saturday. So he calls me up and he goes, hey, can we just come over to your place on a Sunday? You can look at these guys.
Yeah.
So they show up and it's just about to rain. So I say, okay, it's going to rain, guys. Your choice. Pick 2 strokes. Your strength, your weakness. So they would go into the classroom. And then from that point forth, Matt just immersed himself into studying what we've studied. And people can do that by using our online content.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep going down the list.
I've got college coach Steve Denton.
Okay, Steve, I mean, he was number 2 in the world in doubles, number 11 in singles. And he respected the fact that he's from Texas, and he respected that we were developing so many high school state champions, which is very unusual for a touring pro. Like, what are they doing there? Because a lot of times a touring pro, they just don't connect. It's not like they're looking down upon a high school player, but that's just not part of their world, part of their day to day. But he hired a couple of my students, and one in particular just said, "No, Steve, that's not right. No, Steve, that's not right." And he called me up, and several times I went to work, and he's somebody who's lived our curriculum. Yeah. So the whole point is that you can take an administrator like Tyley, a national coach like Clore, college coach like Denton, and they're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We've got high school coach Kevin Record, and he's used the GreatBase curriculum for 10 years.
Yeah, great guy. He actually recommended Kevin to Mark Jeffries. He was part of the summit.
Right.
Super guy.
Yeah.
He's one thing about Kevin is he won state championships, but right now he's had 100 people on his tennis team.
Yeah.
I mean, he's making tennis a popular sport, and that's I think he was excellent because of growing the game. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, great story. Current touring pro Raven Clausen. You rebuilt his entire game from the age of 18 to 22. I know in Tampa.
Yeah, I think for our listeners, I mean, he was ranked 1 and 2. PJ Domdo. Remember PJ when he was 16 or 17 had a win over Andy Roddick, but PJ didn't make the changes. He's a teaching pro now, but and I heard from him afterwards that he wished that he had made those changes. But anyway, Raven, he was all in. He was all in, and we have it all on film, document development. But there's a touring pro that could go out and teach a beginner. He'd have to circle back and come spend some time with us as far as the group dynamics goes. I mean, his intellect, but he's not around. Okay, how am I going to teach 24 players at one time?
Yeah.
But at the same time, actually, when he was on the Davis Cup team, he played for somebody that we trained, John Lafniaga, and Raven did TV. He would go to the Davis Cup, but he wasn't in the lineup. So he would, have the microphone. Very, very knowledgeable guy. Anybody who's played doubles with him, I mean, he's a student of the game. If his wife and his son are not with him at a tournament when he's on tour, he hangs out the whole day and just watches tennis.
Yeah.
But there's a connection of information between all these.
Yeah.
I mentioned, I see where you get
Dave Fish,
camp director, with 12 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And at one point, Dave had me meet with Dave Benjamin, who was running the Intercollegiate Tennis Association, with the idea that we would have a curriculum at tennis camps nationwide. Tennis camps, I think that's the second best position to teach. The best position or the best group is PE classes because they just want the credit.
Yeah.
There's no ego.
Yeah,
they just want the credit. I've had so much fun teaching PE classes.
Yeah, same.
But with a tennis camp, high-level juniors don't go to a tennis camp. But years ago, I mean, I would say I'm a tennis camp junkie. At one time, I lived in a van for 2 years. 1 year it was just traveling around playing tournaments because I was told, okay, you got to be a ranked player. You have to prove that you can play. But I traveled all over the United States for a year going from tennis camp to tennis camp.
Did you ever live in your van down by a river?
Down by the river. Matt Foley, motivational speaker.
Never.
Saturday Night Live.
But I think you should add that every once in a while, depending on who you're talking to. Just be like, hey, I lived in a van down by the river.
No, we should have a podcast and living in a van down by the river. I am a van man. Dave Anderson's on the list, an academy. We could have put so many people run academies, but
Club Pro Richard Hernandez. I mean, Dave Anderson. I mean, if the listeners, if you didn't catch last week's episode 6, we spoke to Dave Anderson.
Yeah, there's somebody 400 plus, 500, a large number of students over a 25 plus year career have gone on to play college tennis.
Yeah.
Less than 3% of juniors play college tennis.
It's awesome.
But, say, for example, go back to the top, Craig Tyley, Matt Clore. If I start sentences, they can finish them, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Because it's just common denominators.
Yeah.
Hernandez, we've talked to him about a podcast just to talk about Canadian tennis.
Yeah, we'll get him on here.
Next.
On the internet, Florian Meyer and Greg Lesueur. And I know they each completed apprenticeships with you. I know Florian 1 year and Greg 3 years. I was around some of the time he was around.
Yeah, I saw where OTI, I saw a list. And again, hats off to them that they were ranked in the top 10 as far as online tennis education, number of followers, that type of thing.
Yeah.
With that, Vic Braden would say there is no Vic Braden method. It's a method of physical law.
Yeah.
Einstein was here before us. So it's a marketing thing. They do have the OTI method, but the OTI method is predominantly the GreatBase method.
No, exactly.
But the GreatBase method, it's not the Steve Smith, the method.
Exactly.
And that's where people, we'll go through that. They're doing a great job in many, many ways, but that's a problem where everybody's like, okay, I've got the angle. This is new. This is
it's my thing.
I've discovered this, and you haven't discovered anything.
Yeah.
And I think it just adds to confusion.
Yeah. No, exactly. I remember being when I first met Florian at the Indian Wells tournament, where they allowed people to go film there, kind of unregulated. And so a lot of these online people would just go film and then use the footage of pro players to kind of attract people to their YouTube channel, and then they could sell their stuff. But Florian, I talked to him, and he wanted to get Vic before Vic passed away. He wanted us to do a course on, approach shots and volleys. And that never came together, but he did do an interview with Vic. I do remember helping him set that up. Yeah.
2 telephone conversations. It's online.
Yeah. We've got club owner Brian Clark.
Brian owns a club up in Cincinnati. His father owned it. Now he runs it with his brother. I do unfortunately know some club owners that have converted to all soccer. So that's another reason to talk about growing the game.
Yeah.
So Brian has a lifetime in tennis. I know one time he told me there's so much dirty money in tennis teaching. In other words, if someone's giving a lesson and they have no rationale, and it's like, can you really sleep at night? You're giving a lesson, you're making it up as you go along. But there's 2 levels of ignorance. You don't know and you don't know. There's a lot of people that don't know that they're incompetent.
Yeah, they don't know.
It's a scary part.
Tennis parent Rob Krychek.
Yeah, I think of Rob. I've known Rob, I just have to go by his son Austin's age. So I've known Rob 23 years. But there would be somebody as a parent that has consumer knowledge.
Yeah.
Inside perspective on all stages of tennis. I talked to Austin at one time. I remember I talked to Ashley Weinhold. Now, I had a lot to do with Austin's tennis, very little to do with Ashley. She was a number 1 player in the country in the 18s. Excuse me, before I worked with her. But her mother and father, they went through this program, this 2-year program. Guy and Lisa, they worked in Europe for Braden for a year. And they did a couple of country club stints. One was in Oklahoma. Then they came back, and they were in Tyler, Texas, with the tennis parent. To have a tennis parent be educated, where they know all different phases. No substitute for a good beginning. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's all sorts of tennis parents we could put down. But we just made this list, 12 categories. And if we just think of everybody for these different categories, if they all were in agreement on core principles. Yeah. Core principles of tennis instruction.
The last person I have on the list is activist, author, business consultant, Javier Palenque.
Javier, he was a keynote speaker to this summit.
Yeah.
And, certainly we're going to put this document on our Facebook page. And I think that you should look Javier up, and, he is for the game. And he's certainly very critical of the governing body of tennis. I think that's one great thing about, freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. So he's not edifying. If there's a problem, he's saying, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution. Things have to be better. But he's somebody who's been around us quite a bit. I mean, I've known him 10 years now, where initially just, meetings. I remember going to meet Javier. I just talked to him on the phone and said, hey, I'll drive up to Orlando to talk to you. And he was just at a little kid tennis function. I know he traveled one time. I was doing a camp in North Carolina. I mean, I can remember him being with me day by day at the Orange Bowl. But again, he's somebody who I know has been contacted by the new CEO of the USTA. I think that, circling back on this, I see you have some notes here also at the bottom, but, it'd be interesting, like the new CEO of USTA, if he knew Craig Tyley's background, because Craig Morris, who now is, I think, not the number 2 guy in the USTA, he worked for Craig Tyley. If the new CEO were to sit down with Matt Clore, even the coaches that he works with, but at that level, they're walking on eggshells a little bit, working within a player's game. Hey, we know you're a really good junior. We know you won some international titles, but we think you need to take, we don't think, we know you need to take 6 months off and fix your serve, that type of thing. But by listening to the group's discussion, one would find out that everybody in the room, from a high school coach to a college coach to a club owner, touring pro, whatever, that they understand teaching's information transfer.
Exactly.
So what's the information? Has to be, the title of the topic is fact-based instruction.
Yeah.
Regarding fact-based instruction, there'd be a bountiful number of common denominators. There'd be a tennis language that in the end that would produce results. It wouldn't be a matter of sound bites. It doesn't make sense for everybody to share or to put in their own 2 cents. Sound bites cannot overrule science. So the critics would say, well, you're saying tennis is a science. I think of being in Paris. Patrick Mortagolo, he's moved his place to, now he has a new facility in the south of France. But he said to me one time, you're just about tennis math. Well, you need to know that tennis is both a science and an art. It's an inexact science because it's played by people, but you can't violate physical laws.
Right.
So we have these questions. Can we agree upon the tennis court being a rectangle, not a circle?
Right.
Can we agree upon the fact that water runs downhill, not uphill? Can we agree that the bridge looks good? That's the art. Yeah, the bridge looks good, but because it's made of bamboo, the cars won't go across the bridge. Here's another example with online education. Here's 4 generations of tennis teaching. 2-Minute Tennis. It's an educational online program founded by Ryan Reedy. The presentations are excellent. The information is excellent. Now here's the coaching tree. And I worked with Ryan when he was a teenage player, but I taught Jim Klein. Jim Klein was a student of mine for 2 years, and he's one of those students who stayed connected. Jim at one point was available to go volunteer at a club. Vic Braden called me up and said, hey, can you send someone to help me out? And he was doing a club at Doylestown. I said, yeah, I got just a guy. And the owner wanted to pay Jim, and Jim said, no, he worked for Vic for a weekend. He said, no, I'm not going to accept any money. And based on that, next thing you know, Jim is the director of tennis. He's running the club. And I think now, he's in a position where he's going to purchase the club. But so Ryan, certainly he was trained by me, but basically he was trained by Jim Klein. So it's a generation. So my mentors. So Ryan he gives a lot of credit to the late Vic Braden, which is great. But for example, he's also been indirectly trained by, a Welby Van Horn, Bill Jacobson,
Dennis Vandermeer,
the 8 pillars that we list. But our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, it's a 25-hour course. It's online. It's free. And that one course, we mentioned over 100 coaches. So this is not to discredit Ryan at all, but this is where it's confusing because there's too much selling. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's done so much right. But internet marketing should not create a perception. Same thing with Greg Lesor and Florian Meyer. It should not create a perception that new information has been researched and discovered.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been.
Yeah. I remember when we were, my good buddy Warren Pretorius with Tennis Analytics, one year he came to one of our workshops down in Tampa, and we were talking about analytics and dartfish, video analysis, those kind of things. And he said, basically, we're not rediscovering, but we're just kind of seeing everything that Vic Braden had already discovered.
Yeah, Warren's a great guy. But Vic did a commercial for dartfish, and the commercial was, "Hi, I'm Vic.
And I dartfish.
I dartfish."
Yeah.
And really what it should have been was, dartfish is doing what I was doing 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And Warren Pretorius, he knows that.
Yeah.
It was really through you and through Dave Nostrand. I had met Warren years ago, and I was at a USPTA conference. I sat in the back and listened to him, went up, talked to him afterwards, and I said, "So, you circled back and you spent time with Braden?" And he's an intellectual in my book. So he said to me, "I wasn't as smart as you." He goes, "You just got it the first time." I would hear Vic speak here and there, and I'd get a little nugget. But then it was through his time at the tennis school in St. George.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with him for 2 years. He was a tennis director at the Park City Racquet Club.
Okay.
I was engaged at the time, and my girlfriend, my fiance, lived up there. So I worked at the Park City Racquet Club for a couple of years, and so we got into dartfish really the same time as far as video analysis goes. And then I had my Braden background already to some level at that point. And then he did come down and help teach for us later on down the road in St. George, I think a couple times.
I know we are being repetitive, but that's certainly part of learning. But again, we told the listeners from our presentation for the summit that we would go through these notes. Warren Pretorius does a great job. But I've told him he was here to visit. The real analytics are the numbers. So coming back to Patrick Mortigolo, you're all about math, whatever.
Yeah.
Is that you need to know the numbers of the dimensions of the court. You need to know the ramifications of the grip.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I told a couple girls here that, I draw a diagram of the tennis court and, okay, how far is it from here to here and here to here? And what's this angle? And they couldn't answer any questions. And I said, well, I can't have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
They kind of looked at me. Because I think a lot of times kids they really want the coach to just spoon feed them. They don't think they have to be an independent thinker.
Well, so resources, honoring and appreciating tennis teachers and coaches as well as tennis players from the past. We've talked about the internet a little bit already, but the internet's almost 30 years old. And Vic used to say this all the time, is that so much bad information is going out so fast. And the tennis profession overall is not that professional because it's totally unregulated. Anything goes, and 2 + 2 is really whatever one wants it to be. And the expression, we're on the same page, unfortunately, tennis people aren't even from the same book. But, we always say there is a book, Vic Braden's Tennis 2000. I consider that a tennis Bible of sorts. But Vic Braden Tennis 2000, before that, it's obviously the updated version of Tennis for the Future. But facts develop principles. And a Braden principle that we use all the time is the dimensions of the court and physical laws dictate stroke production, no coach's opinion or any unique theory.
Now, with that, I grew up, remember being in Catholic school. I have 20, 30 people say this at one time, the dimensions of the court. Mm-hmm. It sounds like mechanical training. Yeah. The dimensions of the court and physical laws dictate stroke production, no coach's opinion or any unique theory.
Yep.
But I've made coaches memorize that. And then when it's like, wait a minute, okay, now I need to know the dimensions of the court. I need to know physical laws.
Yeah, the grips. I mean, but it's amazing. I was with a coach friend last year, and I just got to talking about, the height of the net in the center. And it was like, it's, 6 inches lower, especially when the single sticks are there. And I was like, what? Really? I was like, yep. So I think, overall, whenever we do workshops, it's surprising how many people don't know the dimensions of the court.
Yeah, the thing where you stand in the baseline, you take your racket, you point it down the line. You tell a student, like a teacher with a pointer, close your eyes and point to the other corner of the court. And they point to the next court. That's where that 19.1 degrees.
Yeah.
So at the impact point, again, it's the tennis court from the baseline is less than 20 degrees wide.
Yeah.
And if you know those facts, it's like, okay, I think I'm going to buy in. I don't like that expression, to a vertical swing versus a horizontal swing.
Exactly. Yep. No, so important. Yeah. And then physical laws, obviously. And we always say, just some basics. Do you know how to hit true topspin? What has to happen from a physics aspect?
Braden, what will happen if you play someone who hits true topspin on the forehand side and the backhand side? You will lose. You will finish second in a field of two.
Yeah.
With true topspin, though, very few kids hit true topspin. Yeah. And I know I was taught a continental grip. I changed it slightly. As a result, I had a late contact point, always pinched my shoulder, and I couldn't hit true top.
Yeah.
On the backhand side, you hang onto a hockey stick the same way you hang onto a tennis racket. I mean, obviously your hands are further apart on a hockey stick, and I could hit a true topspin on the backhand side. But I was in tennis for 5 years taking lessons, working night, perennial tennis bum in Boca Raton, Florida. I was really in tennis 5 years before I felt I met someone. I met great people, took lessons, worked nights, took lessons. And it was actually Andy Brandy. Andy Brandy's brother, Joe. I was working for All American Sports. And it was like, whoa. It was just some information that you could kind of, okay, here's the pen. It's tangible. I can grasp it. That makes sense.
Yeah. When Vic passed away, he was honored by so many people, but many continue to say that his work is no longer relevant. And we always say, physics is not a fad. Tennis math has to be understood. And then Einstein, if you know your subject matter, you can explain it to a 6-year-old. Vic, you had this other great line, there's no such thing as little strokes for little folks. You want to program the brain efficiently from the beginning. You want to begin with the end in mind. And you want to learn tennis that you'll never forget. And you want to learn in a manner where there's less chance of getting injury. So we always say when you're going to make technical changes, the first reason why is so that you can prevent injuries, to be efficient. Yeah,
I think so many things. No such thing as a little strokes for little folks. Because if you say, well, they're just a little kid, we'll let them serve this way.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have to reprogram.
Yeah. Now I'm rereading updated version of Richard Schmidt, his motor learning book. And Vic used to talk about this all the time, that you'll start to develop a motor program after 8 hits. So you got to have fun, but you got to have fun and try to get some good fundamentals right away.
Ask Doc. I do have a breakdown of the education system. And it's, this is probably not appropriate, but when it comes down to the word SHIT, elementary school, evolving, blank. Junior high, just horrible, blank. High school, blank, or hot blank. They think they're hot blank. You go to a 2-year school, you get an ample amount of blank, an AAS. Then you have to get an undergraduate degree, a BS. And I think everyone knows what BS means. But then if you want to be able to BS a BSer, you have to go to grad school. You have to get an MS, which means more blank. But if you really want to be the kingpin, you've got to go to school forever, jump through all the hurdles, and you have to get a PhD. That means that your blank is piled higher and deeper than everybody else's. But we put this down, Ask Doc. 40 years apart, Jack Groppel and Mark Kovacs. Now, Jack Groppel and I are both spoon-fed by Vic Braden at the same time. It was great. Andy and I recently had a Zoom call. And Paul McDonald, a teaching pro up in Chicago, a great guy who also worked for Vic, put it together. Mark Kovacs, an Aussie, played tennis at Auburn, won an NCAA doubles title. So he's like the complete package where he's played the game, and certainly with an Australian background. So they're two educators. They're experts in their specific field of study. Now, our point with that is their work is separated by 40 years. Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? I was at a PTR function speaking, and it rains. And we all have to go inside. And there's just one large room, a very, very nice convention center. So Mark is, he's a young guy just starting off, but I mean, he has his playing background, great personality. And it was not like he's a rookie, but it was many years ago. I can just tell because it was Patrick Gibson. So Patrick is, I'm going to guess 20 now. That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, he's a little, yeah.
He just, a junior when he went to A&M for a year. And so at the time, Patrick, I'm going to say, okay, he was 10. So maybe he was 11. So I was a supplemental coach for Patrick. Matt Clore was coaching him. And so he marks up on the stage and he's going through Patrick's serve. And so, good, bad, or indifferent, it has nothing to do with what he had to say, but it's, why do we have to reinvent the wheel? I mean, with basics should be understood in tennis. Why aren't they understood? They are in other sports, like say the technique from the foul line. Okay. Maybe Shaquille O'Neal. I guess he's not very good throwing a foul shot. I really like that guy though. But when it comes down to, okay, your toes are going to face this way, your shoulders are going to face this way, you're going to have your palm go towards your target.
Yeah.
A sprinter coming out of the starting blocks, or how do you throw baseball or football? At least, again, common denominators. The expertise should be in a space other than what we already understood as common tennis knowledge. Yeah. And again, that's where the consumer is confused. Like, oh, I've done this new research and I've developed palm down on the serve.
Yeah. Or like, pre-stretch forehand. I mean,
yeah.
The term modern tennis has been going around for a long, long time, many years now.
But both Jack and Mark, Jack Garoppolo and Mark too, but I mean, just great presenters and great energy, but 40 years apart. The formula is basics.
Yeah.
And repeat. Yeah. But what happens is people don't know basics. Now, typically at a tennis teaching conference, people want, pros they want to learn new drills.
Yeah.
Because they all pretend, I don't need to hear basics. I know basics. Mm-hmm. Well, if you know basics, so, let's watch your kids play. Let's watch your adult program.
Yep. No, moving on to campaigns. And in tennis, we really need more drives, initiatives, and action plans. And for example, play one bounce doubles for 15 minutes in every junior practice. Teach a beginner once a week, and call someone to practice with before and after practice. Those would be big ones.
Yeah, one thing today, I understand where parents, rightfully so, their children are underprepared and overprotected. The days of just letting your kid get on the bike and ride to the park and go play on their own, and then your mom rings a bell and you come in for dinner.
Come bye.
That doesn't happen. But just because practice starts at 9 and ends at 11 doesn't mean you can't get there early. You can't leave late. There's not a tennis court. You can be creative and practice it. In the parking lot.
Yeah. No, so, maybe strong words here, but I've got in the U.S., tennis is broken and it needs to be fixed. No more tennis snobs. Just no more tennis snobs. You got to play with everybody. And if everybody played with a lower level player just once a week, so much more tennis would be played. And you got to teach beginners, you got to volunteer, and you got to donate time.
Yeah, I think one problem we have in junior tennis is the upper level kids, they don't even know the names. It's stratified. They don't even know the names.
Yeah.
That's where you can start a junior program, especially if you have multiple courts. You can start all the kids at one time. They can work on basics together.
Yeah.
The compatibility factors, certainly the 8-year-old's not going to be playing the 18-year-old, but if they don't even know each other by name, boy, a lot of things are really missing because it's a train. The 18s need to pull the 16s, the 16s need to pull the 14s.
Yeah, I think there's that idea that, oh yeah, I got those basics down, or, I don't need to practice those anymore. And so the thought of, okay, let's just say you're ranked top 10 in the country and you're a 16-year-old, there's no way you're going to be practicing with a beginning 8-year-old, that you would be working on the same basic drill.
Yeah, too cool for school.
Side by side.
Too cool for school.
Yeah.
And, years ago, I went to Prague to study tennis, and I was really amazed. Lena Sukova, and has her brother, Cyril, played doubles, the Suk and Sukova.
Oh, yeah, Cyril.
Okay, so He was 11 years old. So the coach I was assigned to, he had 6 players, all different ages, all different levels. It was really amazing. With, it's almost like, I don't teach beginners. I just work with advanced players. And I think that's a big problem, especially in American tennis.
Yeah.
It's like saying that you teach reading, but you can't teach a beginner to read.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the alphabet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I see where you have teaching beginners, volunteer, donate time.
Yeah.
Another problem in the U.S., backboards. Now we have our GreatBase portable backboard, but we're telling young kids ideally if you could have 3 backboards, that means that their parents can't live in an apartment. They have to have a garage. So on a rainy day, inside the garage, you put up a piece of plywood. You could take the transition balls, take a foam ball. You got to find ways to hit more balls. The portable backboard is very good. It has an upward incline. But we're talking about a regular backboard at a high school, at a park, at a club. They're not built anymore because they don't make money.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Ladders. It used to be there'd be a citywide ladder. There'd be a club ladder. And ladders are not run anymore because they don't make money. Yeah. So that comes back to what we initially said, is that we need to make tennis less of a business, and we need to do, is our sport remaining a sport?
Yeah. The thing is, if you do that, you are going to get new players, and it'll all come back.
Yeah, it's like the profit versus people versus profit. If you keep doing the right things, it'll circle back to you. Yeah. Everybody teaches, peer teaching. Kids regulate kids.
Yeah,
but coming back to our hypothetical group, if every person, a club owner, an author, college coach, whoever, if they all understand this is the ready position. Yeah. If you want to have the ball, go around the beach ball, high, low, high, letter C, over the bridge, up the hill. If you want to have the ball rotate this way, there's certain principles that you have to honor.
Yeah, exactly.
So the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Kids are not stupid. Don't underestimate the capacity of the learner.
Yeah.
Einstein, if you know your subject matter, you can teach it to a 6-year-old. Right. So that way, tennis instruction becomes less costly, becomes more friendly, user-friendly. Here's another solution. Incorporate all levels. Be creative. Have a form tournament. Yeah. No, being an American, I have been in some USTA meetings. I was in a meeting one time, Andy Brandy, Jose Gigueras, Martin Blackman. They were all at that time in a different capacity with whatever their titles may have been. And I was asked, because there were several coaches in this large meeting in Boca Raton, Steve, what do you think? And we need to have a form tournament. The USTA had Quick Start, then they dropped the name Quick because of some legal issues with QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. And so we've already talked about that's where the name GreatBase came from, is that it's not a matter of a quick start, it's a matter of the right start.
Right.
But if you have a form tournament, you put up posters of all the best players showing fundamentally sound positions. Roger Federer in the salute position, not the pizza position. Serena Williams, all these great players, they're not violating physical laws. Yeah. And the human eye can't see what they're doing, but you show them at the impact point.
Yeah. Looks the same.
So with little kids, and Vandermeer is a genius at this, is use trickery. Have prizes for form. Mm-hmm. Play statue. High, low, high. Reach up, shake hands with a giant. So that's much better to have prizes for form. Reward that in the early ages, opposed to giving out the 2-inch trophy for playing the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah. Effort, form, attitude, character.
It's like, who wins the 12 and unders? The kid who wins the 12 and unders. He started very early, and he's usually got a Western grip on the forehand. So he's going to be, with his high contact point, he's going to get the racket face vertical. Yeah. He's going to be shoveling a 2-handed backhand.
The people on YouTube can see how your elbow tucked way in.
Where the racket's going to hit your earlobe. And with palm up serve, start to toss over your head a little bit, start going this way. Yeah. And you announce a score, your human scoreboard. Plus you cheat like crazy. That's how you become a really good 12-year-old. If you teach people to play the right way, they go to the net to lose at a faster rate. Yeah. That's where even being creative with little kid tennis, where why can't we have them play with the orange ball? They're playing doubles, and everybody's just got to go to the net.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to go to the net, and you play one bounce doubles.
Yeah.
With, but yeah, at the impact point, the pros, people have to understand that the pros are 90% or more the same at the impact point. Where's the head, their own head?
Yeah.
Where's the left shoulder on, say, on a forehand? Is the arm bent or straight? What's the wrist position? What's that contact point? Right there at the hit. They used to do silhouettes. And back when the men in the 70s wore their hair long, there's Vic Braden had a picture of Chris Everett and Neely Nastasi. They had completely different approaches to the ball.
Yeah.
But at the impact point, it looked like it was the same person.
Yeah. And then it's just like it comes down to, with different approaches to the ball, it's still, hey, which one's going to be more efficient? We always use the analogy or the example, hey, you can circle your hand around your head twice and scratch your ear, or just reach up and scratch your ear. One's going to be easier, more efficient, fewer moving parts, less muscular effort than the other. So really, when it comes down to, people watch the pros for examples of technique, but a lot of the pros aren't really that efficient, even though they're pros.
A lot of physical specimens, a lot of warriors.
Exactly. Another idea, concept, starting pre-academies. Stop telling kids they're elite when they're not. Incorporate other sports within tennis training to enhance athletic ability.
Yeah, say even with adult tennis. Now, we spend so much time talking about junior tennis, but adult tennis, in the 70s when the NTRP, the National Tennis Rating Program, came out, what happened with club pros is they wanted to be popular. So someone was an adult player, they were 3-0, but they were told they were 3-5.
Yeah.
So killing people with kindness doesn't help out. I mention this all the time. I played ice hockey. You work and work. You start off as a novice, a squirt. You finally, at 12 years old, you're finally a peewee.
Yeah.
Incorporate other sports into training as well. But kids come out. It's not a matter, okay, we got to get this 6-year-old come to tennis every day, Mom. If they are going to come quite a bit, they need to be playing a little basketball, a little soccer. They just need to be doing athletic skills.
Yeah.
Coming back to stop telling kids they're elite when they're not. I've had so many coaches, especially young coaches. I have a little bit of sarcasm. And hi, I'm Joe. I'm a high performance coach. I say, hi, I'm Steve. I'm a low performance coach.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids are not high performance.
Yeah.
They're just not high performance.
Well, and really what it comes down to, all good tennis players is, the guys that are really, really great, they're living their life to be great. And so a lot of these kids, it's like, sorry, but you're not living your life to be considered elite or high performance even.
Yeah, you need to know the history of your sport. You take Lendl, his mother was number 2 in Czechoslovakia when he was just born. She wanted to be number 1. Or Sampras' sister. I always tell people, Sampras is number 1 in the world for 6 years, but there was more than 6 years where Stella could beat him. Mm-hmm. He wasn't the number 1 in his household.
Yeah.
So I think tennis history and having perspective. But one of the worst things you can do, especially when a kid is just a big fish in a small pond, is tell someone they're good when they're not.
Yeah. Another idea here, skills test or skill test. Anything that can be measured can be improved. Tennis skills like reading skills can be measured. Can the player hit targets? Can they hit the designated target? You want to, sorry.
Yeah, that's a definition of tennis, running, hitting targets with a score. It comes from Braden. Braden used to just say hitting targets. Mm-hmm. We say running, hitting targets with a score. The hitting is the technical. The running is the physical. The target is the tactical, and the score is the mental emotional. Yeah. We have people come to see us from here, there, and everywhere, and we put them through a tiebreaker test. They have to hit 6 shots to go up 1-0. And we're talking about, we're going to hit you a forehand volley. We're going to feed it to you. It's a courtesy feed. It's going to be coming 22 miles an hour. And the service box is the size of a small living room. It's 21 by 13 and a half. Can you hit the forehand volley in that service box? And it's amazing. Kids will have a high sectional ranking. Their scores are 07.
Yeah.
And with anything that can be measured can be improved. So when we tell kids, first of all, we tell kids, before you ever come back, if you can, your parents should build a backboard because it's expensive to come and visit us, get on airplanes and stay in hotels and such. Yeah. But when it comes down to a skills test, kids come back and I ask them, have you been doing the tiebreaker test? And they go, no.
Yeah.
Parents really should do that. They're going to get out, and they should. They should get out and feed their kid balls. And what they should do is set up the 5 targets we set up and just feed them the tiebreaker test.
Yeah.
Now you can change it. We're okay. Now play a conventional forehand approach volley or play an underspin backhand approach high.
Yeah.
But instead of the parent masquerading, trying to pretend they can teach, what they should do is say, let's just do the skills test. And really they should reverse it where they have the kid, hey, why don't you feed me some?
Yeah.
And then even have the kid teach the parent if
Exactly.
the parent's not a tennis person.
Yeah. Information transfer, basics, repeat. Document development, film from day one, show pre and post films, show improvement and progress, create procedures for accountability.
Yeah, we have on our website, we have a course. I went to a USTA program, and it was an assignment for was it called the High Performance Coaching course?
Yeah. USDA high performance
you went through
coaching
that.
program. Yeah, I've been high performance for many, many years now. I went 2004, I believe I went. So long time.
I went to the course. I'm still low performance, but I'm working.
Only just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, I'm a slow learner.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
But yeah, document development, show improvement, accountability.
Yeah.
Here's problem. Evaluate the pathway of a beginning tennis teacher. Most start off as a glorified sparring partner. The consumer doesn't have consumer knowledge. They want to find a shortcut for their son, Tommy, their daughter, Jennifer. They want to find a shortcut. So they're going to hire somebody who can hit the ball. And, maybe it's someone who wasn't quite good enough to make their college lineup,
Yeah.
but they're the best player in the area. And they certainly hit the ball better than the juniors. So I've said this before. People have heard me. It's on our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied. In boxing, they wear a helmet.
Yeah.
They wear a mouth guard. And so the sparring partner in boxing doesn't have a speaking part.
Yeah.
So what happens is a consumer pays a sparring partner too much money, and they feel compelled to talk, and that's where their coaching career begins.
Yeah.
Because they could hit the ball.
Yeah.
It's that bad. It's scary. We always tell people, you go to the Orange Bowl, not so much with the girls, but the boys. You walk and you see the 18-year-olds play, and they don't have very good service motions. So sorry, you're not playing pro tennis because you're starting out every other game. Your serve's a minus, and you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. But so many of them said, well, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to just be a pro. And because of the cycle, the consumer hires them and they become coaches. So do they serve apprenticeships, internships? I think most young coaches, when they enter, they're undertrained and overpaid. They're making so much more money than minimum wage. Mm-hmm. There's so many people they've come out of college with degrees. They don't make what a beginning tennis teacher makes. Now, granted, a lot of beginning tennis teachers, they stay at that same income their whole career. Do they have dynamic skills, group dynamic skills?
Yeah.
That's another thing. The game is so expensive. We have to pay for hitting lessons. Some people will even say to their clientele, to their parents, you don't get that much technical attention in the groups. You have to take privates. Mm-hmm. And, so the parents are writing a check for the group lessons or writing a check for the private lessons. So that's a big problem. When a young pro starts off, is there any orientation? Or they say, here's your basket, here's court 6. Or better yet, you're on our staff, go fish, go hustle lessons, teach whoever you can teach. And, there's no continuity from one court to the next at most tennis clubs.
Yeah.
That's a major problem.
Yeah.
Granted, the style's going to be there, the personality, but, a kid should be able to go from the early childhood development class. That comes back. There should be, you're a beginner, you're advanced beginner, you're intermediate.
Yeah.
But if people are going to be successful, there's going to be a lot of continuity from one course to the next.
That was one thing I really liked about the Vic Braden Tennis College. Starting my teaching there was obviously there was a pretty long training period, even though I'd had a lot of background with Vic starting at age 13, but everybody was on the same page. And so when the people would come in, even if it was a 3 or 5 day camp, when we had rotations or if we went from, different court to different court, the information was the same. There was, one pro was going to tell them to do this, and another one, hey, do something totally radically different.
Yeah.
And so the people would always comment on that. They go, well, this is really nice because, different personalities, but the information was always there.
Granted, like a college coach working with someone who's been playing for many, many years, they have to work within a player's game. I think that's more of a challenge. That's perhaps more artistic than just, okay, here's raw information for the beginner.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one thing about the sparring partner. The sparring partner, they don't want to work with beginners. They just want to teach kids who can hit the ball. And that's why they're going to be that merchant of flesh at the weekend tournament, handing out a business card.
Yeah.
And the game is not going to grow if people are waving their arms going, no, I don't teach beginners.
Yeah.
You need to bring new people into the game.
Yep.
And then also, too, is to reducing the cost. We mentioned that.
Yeah.
But do people who come in, do they understand fact-based instruction? The fact-based instruction. In the governing bodies of tennis teaching, the PTR, USPTA, I met with John Embry about the Vic Braden Library. And, he runs the USPTA. And again, there's 15,000 pros, Mark Twain. Every time you meet someone, you meet their master. But of the 15,000, and I think the PTR is about the same size, how many people in that organization know 19.1 degrees?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many do they just know fact-based instruction? And do they really understand? So that's where, Braden used to say, when someone gets upset on the tennis court, usually it's an engineering problem. Yeah. It's not an attitude problem. They come to court, they're in a good mood.
Yep.
But they got a forehand that's going to break down.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I do think another thing is discourage endless private lessons. The Australians used to, and still do, is that, okay, you got a private lesson, and they put a junior on the court. Nick Bollettieri did that when he first started teaching. He had Brian Gottfried on the court. Brian Gottfried, he's number 3 in the world. With, he still looks like he's 18 years old, but with that, endless private lessons and also endless program hours. Kids get programmed out, especially kids who live, like, say, in Chicago or Seattle, wherever, where the weather, they've got to play indoors in the wintertime.
Yeah.
That they're not playing any sets. They're just 6 on a court, just doing drills.
Yeah.
I tell a lot of kids what you really should do, the parents, is support the program, but just go to the program part of the time and then get your own courts and play anybody and everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got here embracing the UTR. And with that, there's no reason for ranking lists that promote a false feel-good fantasy. And you could have a self-rating and self-arranged matches with no entry fee, and those should count. No checks written. People will cheat, just like a golfer lying about their handicap. But really, in the end, all you have to do is just watch them hit one ball, and you're going to know.
Yeah, someone told you you're a scratch golfer. Again, I grew up around golfers. I'm not a golfer, but I had every opportunity to be a golfer, but I caddied quite a bit. Somebody tells you they're a scratch golfer, you watch them hit one ball.
Exactly.
That's all.
Exactly. Same thing. And the system should connect levels all the way to the entry-level pros. Tennis teachers and coaches should not make their money from tournaments. You could find ways to give the money to entry-level pro players. Major cities should not have half a dozen random UTR events held on one weekend or on the same weekend. UTR needs to be accepted by governing bodies of tennis to create progressive structures. UTR events are run by teachers and coaches who have figured out that they can make money running a tournament opposed to teaching or coaching. And local tournaments should be ageless and genderless.
Yeah, years ago, before the NTRP, and the NTRP has been very good for social tennis, very good for adult tennis. It used to be you had to win 2 B terms to play an A tournament. The draws were much larger. Coming back to the UTR, it's unfortunate that people have to write a check. Now, the UTR did come out with a self-rating. I don't know how many people are really aware of that. And again, people would cheat. People would sandbag it. Maybe sandbagging is saying that you're worse than you are. That's one golf term I'm not really bang on with. But with the UTR, that you shouldn't have to write a check. And again, it's like here in Orlando, it's like the wild, wild west. I mean, before the pandemic is like, well, there's 6 UTR events because the UTR wasn't really totally accepted by the USTA. And I understand now that the ITF may have their world pin number, and it's like, can't we work together?
Yeah, exactly.
And UTR, there's some negatives to it where that's all people, young kids are just obsessed by it. I mean, I heard this is probably the worst, that one young kid, he agreed to play high school tennis. He didn't have a last name like mine, Smith. He agreed to play high school tennis, and the parents were behind it. If you misspell my name, I'll play on your team. And the coach said, okay. And I'm going, oh, what's going on? People are paid a teaching pro to, lose a set to a kid to have their UTR go up. So there's gaming going, and that's very,
crazy.
very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's just too bad that the USTA, for example, it was much better when there was just clay courts, hard courts, and indoor. Not that many kids. It was just Thanksgiving weekend that we'd go to indoor.
Yeah.
You had to play in your section. It wasn't a matter of level 2s and level 3s. Now, the top sections, it's like Winston Churchill, democracy is not perfect. That, the Floridians, I remember Bobby Curtis talking about this. Bobby Curtis, who's run junior terms in Florida forever. The Californians as well, the Texans, because they have very strong sections.
Yeah.
But majority rules. So then all of a sudden, the parents, and the parents, you have to thank the volunteers of the USA, so many parents, and so made all these decisions thinking they were doing the right thing for their kids. Where like say, okay, no outsiders can play. Kalamazoo used to be open to foreign players. So we were better off, like the Midwest, all these small cities, and perhaps the quality of family life, the appreciation for indoor court time. The Midwest sectionals years ago, used to call it the Westerns. It was a very, very tough tournament. But now it's like, well, I've got to go to Florida. I've got to go to California.
Yeah.
And kids, it's almost like the checkbook system. So the UTR was set up to try to make competitive tennis, less costly.
Yeah.
And the powers that be, and I think with Mark Jeffries' summit, I know Dave Fisher had so much with putting the UTR on the map. Dave Howell put it together initially, did the math and did the computer work, copying the French system. But yeah, the making match play less expensive.
Yeah. Yep.
This thought back to the future, Dave Anderson.
Yeah.
I love that when you asked him how to make tennis better in the U.S., and he said, go back to the future. You mentioned playing 15 minutes of ghost doubles, bowling bounces once. The Bryan brothers, they've retired, and now serve and volley doubles is on its way to becoming extinct.
Could be.
I mean, you go to a college tennis match, it used to be the girls were playing one up, one back. And we've talked about that. I've talked about that with Dave Anderson is, you only learn by making mistakes, serve and go. Yeah. And if you're a high school freshman and you play serve, stay back, what are you going to do in your sophomore? You're going to play what you did to try to win as a freshman.
Exactly.
There's a lot of lost arts in tennis, the approach shot, the conventional approach volley. It's unfortunate.
And it's kind of heading to just the volley in general. I mean, you can't serve and volley if you can't serve and volley.
Oh, you can go to a futures tournament and there's players who don't even warm up at the net.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
It's like, what?
Explain pro-level terminology. What language applies to various stages of development? Like, say, serve +1, first strike tennis, first 4 shots. Now, we mentioned Warren Pretorius, along with Craig O'Shaughnessy. I mean, if Mike Costa told me, he's someone who played for Craig Tyley at Illinois, then he spent time working with us. He's a professional comedian now on The Daily Show. Costa told me, to make money in tennis is the same way to make money in comedy. If you're on TV in tennis, you're making money. If you're on you're on TV in comedy, you're making money. But O'Shaughnessy, I mean, he's been on TV. It's great, and I'd like to see him on there more with match analysis. But O'Shaughnessy, Pretorius, others, I think back about Bill Jacobson, what he did with the first computer for match analysis. From their lifetime, they know that kids need to learn skills first. Yeah. So that comes back to that soundbite mentality. And the TV commentators, they need to be educated.
Yeah.
And, they're saying serve +1, first 4 shots. And next thing you know, 12-year-olds are hearing that.
Yeah.
And they can't hit the broadside of a barn. If they were, the basketball expression, if they were in a boat, they couldn't hit water. I mean, with, so it's sensationalistic to teach the wrong things at the wrong time. Now, I've listened to O'Shaughnessy. There's so many YouTube clips, and I've heard him say, now for beginners, for when you're first starting out, but young kids, we just have to understand that they're on YouTube clips and potato chips. There's some negatives there.
Well, and even with pros, and it's in the stats that, hey, tennis is a difficult sport. Going back to the very beginning, people are making more errors than they are winners, for the most part.
Yeah,
it's unforced errors. It's really about can you hit the shot.
Misery enjoys company. You miss 45% of shots. I'll miss 45% of shots. It'd be really competitive. It'd be really exciting.
Yeah.
Very little tennis played in tennis.
Yeah.
We have to fight tennis ignorance, tennis arrogance with a common sense approach. But what is that common sense approach? It comes back to fact-based instruction.
Yeah.
We mentioned the most important analytics: grip, swing, body, toss. You ask, say, 20 people, you take a survey, what's more important, the swing or the toss? It's going to be the toss. You go, the toss. Vandermeer used to tease and say, I teach, I have a $24,000 program. I'll teach you the lesson, just pay in cash. And I'll teach you how to toss. Tennis myths were debunked years ago.
Yep.
Years ago.
Yep.
But that's where the internet is adding to so much confusion. And they're back tenfold.
Yep.
Another thing in the U.S. is we need to revive high school tennis. Play for something bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. If you are a homeschooler, your parents are a taxpayer, you can play high school tennis. It's a very short season. Mm-hmm. Based on the aftermath of the pandemic, and I don't think we're obviously there yet, but college tennis may need to be adjusted to improve. Iowa, Minnesota have dropped.
Yeah.
But tennis kids, they need to learn to be on a team. And, when you say that, say, okay, we want everybody to teach. So we're going to teach the tots at, 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and we want the older kids to come out. We don't want them to be self-absorbed and selfish, self-centered. You're going to come out and you're going to help the young kids.
Yeah. And
if they were to do that, the tennis lessons wouldn't have to be so expensive.
Yeah, and the kids teaching are going to get life skills.
Yeah, it doubles the learning, peer teaching.
Yep.
Here's another solution. We've got to work harder and smarter. In the U.S., we've become lazy. That comes back to the gardener getting down on their knees and working the soil every day versus just growing like weeds.
Yep.
What we're doing is we're giving people less and we're charging them more. And that's dead wrong. Mm-hmm. We're giving them less and we're charging them more. Okay, so we did mention the people versus profit principle. What happened to 21 and unders? I know you lived in Germany for 4 years. They still have that in Germany. We had that in the United States.
Yeah.
Why don't we have that anymore?
Yeah.
We had 25 and over. Don't have that anymore. Yeah. We've dropped conventional scoring. Why does it have to be no third set?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be no ad scoring?
Not going to be on TV.
Why do we, in some cases, we drop consolation? Or if you play consolation, it becomes an 8-game pro set.
Yeah.
So there's less tennis being played.
Yeah.
Wimbledon used to have a plate. All the first round losers called the Wimbledon plate.
Yeah.
The NCAs used to be consolation. You go to the right. So more matches. Yeah. And this has been mentioned in our podcast. And we're pretty new to these podcasts, but playing doubles as a 6-game no ad pro set. I know all people say, well, we're trying to get college tennis on TV, and nonsense versus common sense. Go ahead, but those are a few solutions.
Yeah, no, I hope listeners out there, I hope you've gotten a lot of value from these notes, these ideas that we've gone through. As far as what we're trying to do, we're trying to bring education, free education to tennis players. And with GreatBase Tennis, again, we say it's a system of systems. It's not Andy Fitzell stuff or Steve Smith stuff, just like it wasn't Vic Braden's stuff or no Vic Braden method, but it's a blend of methods. It's not one-dimensional. It's quite the contrary. It's a study of past tennis masters, and it's a study of proven methodologies. Based, Steve, on your journey in tennis in the 70s, and GreatBase Tennis, GreatBase curriculum was first practiced starting in 1981 in the U.S.'s first comprehensive tennis curriculum for tennis students seeking occupational competency as tennis teaching pro managers. Tennis Tech.
Yeah.
Tyler, Texas. And
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we use the line, really when it comes down to it, is who can argue with having a great base or a great foundation? Just like in any other sport, you got to have a great base, got to have a great beginning.
Carl Hale is right now the president of the PTR. He runs the Canadian Open. Now, he worked in Japan at a tennis club that I later worked at. I just worked there as a traveling consultant. He worked there full time. So he came back to Canada, and Richard Hernandez really helped him when he came back, because it's difficult when a pro is working out of country and they have to come back. So what Carl says is so true, is in tennis, it's almost like you have to be coaching a marquee player. I mean, you really have to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But with results, here are a few things about the GreatBase as far as success. And keep in mind, we have not worked with recruited players.
Yeah.
I lived in Tyley, Texas for 10 years. The second 5 years, so it's a small city, small program, we developed more state champions in Dallas and Houston combined. Really, we just had a program where we had around 10 kids. We call them the guinea pigs. From that time period, we had 2 kids go on and win national individual college titles. Our students and our students have won the boys and girls national 18s. We tell people, name a college or university, and we're usually 10 for 10, where we've had a former student play or coach at that school. School named. Name a country, and most likely we've trained coaches from that country. This is not marquee players. We're not talking about people who became U.S. Davis Cup stars, but we had 3 players from the same program who started as beginners be on the U.S. Davis Cup team as practice partners. The French Open is going on right now. Andy and I would just go through in our network of coaches. We go through the draws of majors, and there's all sorts of players that we've had a direct or indirect connection with. So when it comes down to, again, the Vic Braden line, if you are teaching the kid who takes the ice cream cone and puts it in the middle of their forehead, then you can teach. I have a brother who's written 10 books on ice hockey.
And if you can get that kid to hit the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a brother who's written 10 books on ice hockey, and the first book he didn't dedicate to anyone. So I gave him a hard time, and it might have been the second book or the third book. He dedicated one to his grandparents or our grandparents. And then he dedicated one to my father. He said, hey, my father understands the true meaning of sports, participation. And, in hockey, the term, beginner to expert, that, we have to have people hungry to work with both. It's not just, I want to work with the experts.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, I think that about wraps everything up. Again, the things that we're doing today, we've got our free website. We've got 5 free courses on there, and we've got plans for more content coming out here pretty quick. We've got 3,000 plus pages on our GreatBase Tennis Facebook page. We're doing daily posts on Instagram. And then we've got this here podcast that you're listening to. Appreciate all the time listening to us, and really hope you got a lot of value out of this conversation. Information, ideas, insights, going through some of the problems and solutions with tennis, trying to help tennis worldwide, help tennis teaching. So again, if you've got any comments or questions, you can reach out to us, info@greatbasetennis.com.
Yeah, we'll put these notes on Facebook, GreatBase Tennis Facebook.
Yeah.
And again, BTWL Summit, Between the White Line Summit with Mark Jeffries, organized by Emma Collins. We did a presentation for them, and we had told the listeners from that 40-minute session that we would just go through this a little bit slower. So again, I hope our listeners got something out of it.
Yeah, appreciate you guys listening. And until next time, I'm Andy Fitzell alongside Steve Smith.
Adios, amigos.
We'll see you again. Thanks for listening.